McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titans! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with the...
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan Nation, welcome back to another episode of Mr. Titan. Today, I have a special guest. We all know him. We all love him. We have Mike Keith, the voice of the Titans. How you doing, buddy?
I'm fine, Alex, and thanks for not forcing me to call you Mr. Titan the whole show. I think that would be weird. So I'm very glad that you've let me know it's Alex and that we could just chat as normal people.
Exactly.
And I don't have to refer to you by your title.
And that's the funny thing is it's happened before where I forgot to introduce myself and the person was just kept on calling me Mr. Titan, Mr. I think Gerald McGrath at one point was like, yeah, Mr. Titan. I was just like, and I wanted to message him like, Gerald, just it's Alex, man.
G-Mac's the best though.
He is.
So that's good for him. He would do it the right way, however it goes.
He did. He actually the jersey in the back that he sent to me, he actually put to Mr. Titan. So it's funny, but
that's great.
Yeah. But how are you doing? How are you doing today, sir?
I'm having the time of my life right now because we're getting ready for the draft. And my mother said it the other night at dinner or lunch, I should say. She said, this is really the start of your season. And it really is, because we go to the Senior Bowl and we go to the Combine and free agency kicks off. But when we walk into the stadium next Thursday night to do the draft party and everybody's there and you feel the excitement, and at some point when we go on the clock, it feels like a game.
Yeah.
And what's really wild too, Alex, is over the period of time we've been doing draft parties. It was funny, Larry Stone and I did the first one in the parking lot as Nissan Stadium was being built in 1999, April of 99. We were just outside an RV. It was freezing cold, and we picked Javon Curse.
Mhm.
And people really went nuts because Javon Curse was an SEC guy. They knew who that was. I mean, that was such a key pick for us in so many different ways. But then the next year, we did a draft party that lasted 5 hours, and we didn't even get to our pick. We had gone back to the radio station when they finally selected Keith Bullock after like 5.5 hours. And so those draft parties in the early years were rather hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they started to click in a little bit more. We missed one in 2020, weren't able to do that quite the same way. And overall now they have so much energy because our fan base is as interested in the draft as any fan base in the NFL. They know as much. Yeah. If you hear them call into like the Sirius XM shows and talk to, say, Jim Miller and Pat Kerwin on Moving the Chains, they're asking really good questions. And those guys have said to me in the past, they said, your fans really know their stuff when it comes to the draft. And it's like, yeah, that's not surprising, because as seriously as we take football in this part of the country, as seriously as people take football recruiting, it's not surprising that draft would be the next offshoot. And it's just fun. And when our fan base is having a good time, I'm having a good time.
Yeah, definitely. You can see it throughout the years as media people and YouTubers and everyone giving their opinion and talking about and just spreading out information about each player that you might not cover, or you might not even thought like, hey, that's actually a good pick. Like this guy, which, suits the Titans. And you see that throughout the years, and it's becoming more and more. It's almost like you said, almost like the beginning of the season, starts when you guys go and you guys, start doing the training camps. I mean, you guys start doing the combine and stuff. And for us, it's like we start right when the season ends, we're already kind of looking at okay, what kind of college prospects are out there? What would look good for the Titans, and what we need and stuff. So it's cool how everyone kind of involved and just is into it, is all into the draft and the draft parties. Draft parties are awesome.
Well, I just wanted to add one more thing because I know you don't want to be on this forever, but I just really do admire how so many people put in the work.
Yeah.
And I did a talk show every day for 9 years. And so I have a little bit of an idea of what it takes. And to see so many different people across so many different platforms who really, really do the work to know who these people are, to understand how it all fits together, um, to understand what the teams are looking for in certain situations. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And wanted to shout out to the draft party. The first draft party I went to was the one where we got Traylon Burks. It was a Saturday, I think. I actually flew in. Yeah, I flew in that morning from Texas. Went there. Once it was over in the afternoon, I flew right back to Texas and worked the next day. And
So you weren't there on Thursday night when the trade happened.
no, I
Oh
was
boy. That is one of my 5 most interesting experiences in being involved with the Titans.
okay. That's
I don't know that the story is far enough in the past to tell the whole thing so that anybody could get a chuckle.
you know what? It might be
But
interesting to talk about, but you might want to bring that up, Mike. That might be something. I know
well,
there's a question.
when we got the word the trade was being made,
Mhm.
I had to call the whole group together on the stage and say, "This is what's happening." And so everybody who's involved with us, and I'm talking about the technical crew and the people who are on the air, they're in shock. And then I went ahead and said what was being reported.
Uh-huh.
And I did that because I felt like the fan base ought to know. I thought, do I wait until the actual trade and then pick happens, or do I go ahead and say? Needless to say, it was not a positive reaction. And there was a guy who was so upset he took his AJ Brown socks off, walked up to the table, dropped his socks on the table, and left.
Wow.
Now, I understood where he came from.
Mhm.
I didn't want his socks. I really didn't. But that was one of those moments where you're having to maintain your absolute focus and do your job and not look at what's going on around you. Because at the moment, I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my time with the team to see. And of course, that night, 90% of the crowd is wearing an AJ Brown jersey.
Oh my lord.
It was like, oh, it couldn't be like most of them are wearing Derrick Henry or Tannehill
Yeah.
or Kevin Byard or Taylor Lewan or not that night. That night, 90% of the people there were wearing AJ Brown jerseys. And it
That's
was
rough. That's
it was really something.
Oh man. Well, kudos to you to keeping your composure, because I can only imagine the reaction. Because I remember my reaction at home, and I was like, I thought there was something wrong with the TV. I'm like, no, that's not. The Titans wouldn't do that. I'm like, come on, John Robinson wouldn't do that. And I was like, oh my god. I was just like, there it is, there it is.
Yeah, I hope I'm not interested in having that experience again. Thank you. And the party was going great.
Yeah, well, there it is, right?
I mean, we had between 500 and 1,000 people, and everybody was having a great time. And
Now, did a lot of people leave?
yes, yes, they did.
I could see that. I could see people.
Coach Mack tried to leave. We stopped him.
Oh, really?
No,
I
no,
was like, oh man.
no. I'm
That's
just
so-
no. I mean, but they were kind of
and shocked.
yeah,
Like,
and afraid they might come after us. Um, not really, but I mean, it was spooky. It was really something.
that's quite a story right there, Mike. That's
Yeah, 26 years, you've seen a couple things, and that was one of those things.
ooh man. Yeah. like I said. But other than that, the draft party that I went to,
They're great. Well,
it
I
was
mean, that's
good.
the thing is you don't know what's going to happen. You want to be there, but to see our fans together,
Hmm.
and you'll see people who know each other,
Yeah.
like sit together.
Mhm.
You'll see people who just get to know each other and they start having a conversation. I'm always stunned by the number of kids who are really into it, but I guess I shouldn't be because now we have a whole generation like you who've grown up with it.
Yeah.
And that's the best part of our fan base right now is these people that I had a chance to meet all over the region on Titan's Caravan,
I remember you
and
talking about that.
and now they have kids.
Yeah.
And so
Pass
they've
it
been
on.
fans their whole life and they've passed that on and they have a good time coming to the games and walking across the bridge and eating somewhere downtown before they come over or tailgating or, whatever their traditions are. Getting my son, when he went to games, man, he had to get like a hot dog and, that was his big thing. And that's really what it's all about. It's all about being able to enjoy an experience together. And our fan base is just really special because I think they get the football part of it, but there's also the personal part of it that is so meaningful about football in this part of the country. And I don't mean to go sappy, but I love it. I especially love the father and son part of it because my dad did lots of things with my brothers around sports. And had we had the Titans when we were growing up in Franklin, this is what we would have done.
Gotcha.
I know what that would have meant. We would have gone to draft parties. We would have gone to the 2019 draft in downtown Nashville. We would have driven to the playoff game at Indianapolis I mean, that's just how it would be. So I can totally relate to all that, which is what means so much.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the fan base is just growing and things are
Mhm.
changing constantly now. Like I said, the new stadium happening. I mean, there is excitement in Nashville. And don't get me wrong, last year was, not the way we wanted the season to end,
Right.
stuff like that. But there's still, there's still hope. There's still, with this coaching crew, I think it's something that, we can look at and say, hey, like, I mean, we might have something here. We might have something with the coaching staff,
Yeah,
100%.
I'm very excited about Brian. And I'm very excited about the staff that he's been able to assemble.
Yeah.
That was my first question. I was in Charleston, South Carolina, trying to get away for a few days because we didn't think we were going to be hiring a coach, and so I was like, well, we'll make plans, we'll get away. Well, I told my wife, I said, there's a decent chance that I'm going to have to come back early, and she understood, because you hire a coach, you got to come back. And when I got the call, my first question was about what does he think of Will Levis?
Is he the guy?
Does he believe that Will Levis is the guy going forward or at the very least has a chance to be a guy? And I was told absolutely he does. And that meant a lot to me because that meant we weren't starting completely over.
Yep.
And with Brian Callahan being a quarterback guru, if he liked Will Levis, then it's like, okay, then that's really good. The second question I had was, how do we feel about staff? And the person that I was speaking with laid out what he thought would happen as far as staff, and it all happened, which was phenomenally exciting. I mean, Denard Wilson as defensive coordinator, Nick Holtz as the offensive coordinator, being able to, get Stevie Jackson back here, being able to keep Chris Harris, being able to keep Justin Outen, and then of course Bill Callahan is the offensive line coach, which is the absolute home run. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton of reason to be optimistic.
Yeah, definitely going through for the season. I'm excited. What do you think? I know you talked about it. I know you said it was an earlier post about the Chargers being kind of like a game changer, right? Especially there's a lot. It's always a lot of rumors before draft night. Everyone thinks they're gonna trade or trade away or what do you think? And I like your little idea with especially with the Chargers because it's all hypothetical. It's all like we're all trying to get the right answers, get the questions right, and we don't know. We're just hypothetically thinking. Right.
Well, I'll take you a little inside baseball here.
Let's go Yankees.
Yeah, that's right. In terms of what we're preparing, so we're going to do 6 to 10 Central on Titans Radio.
Okay.
On Thursday night, and then we're going to do 6 to 9 on Titans Radio on Friday night, and then we're going to do 4 to 6 Central Time on Saturday. So Coach Mack watches the tape and grades the players with Rhett Bryant. Ramon Foster does some of the same things. So they're our experts. I'll know who the players are. Amy Wells will be there on Friday night. Brent Hubbs from VaultQuest comes in and joins us, which we really like because he has such great insight, in particular on the SEC players. He knows the backstories from when they were being recruited.
Okay.
And so it kind of gave a different flavor last year. We liked it so much. We asked him that night, hey, you got to come back next year. So everybody has their roles. What I'm going to do, Alex, is I'm going to host with Amy, and I'm going to try to move the conversation in different areas. When a guy's picked, Coach Mack's going to say, well, he has great feet, and he does this, and he does that. And Rhett's going to say, he has a 42-inch vertical, and he does this and that. And Rhett's probably going to tell a story involving their background, which will be something interesting. So where I look at it for my role is, okay, what are the teams thinking about? How many picks do they have? What do they need? Where do they have cap room? Where do they not have cap room? Things of that sort. So I said on the post that I put out about the Chargers, they are the team that's the wild card to me, because on paper, you're saying they're picking a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
It's a done deal. They're picking a wide receiver. Well, maybe they do. But it's Jim Harbaugh, who's always a wild card. He's new. He doesn't really run a system that he needs 4 wide receivers. Or, I mean, you look at the team that he took to the Super Bowl in San Francisco, and they had good wide receivers, but there wasn't a showstopper per se. So does he want to tackle there? Does he want an edge rusher there?
Yeah.
Or does he get out at 5? And if he gets out at 5, what does that mean? Does that mean that the first 4 picks have been quarterbacks and he's wanting to, jump back somewhere and allow somebody to draft the first receiver or to draft the first lineman? All of those things, you're sitting here going, okay, I've got an idea what some teams are going to do, and I have an idea because of what their specific needs are and what their traits are and what it all factors into. Is Jim Harbaugh different than he was, or is he different from his time at Michigan than he was when he was with the 49ers? And he clearly has more personnel say-so with the Chargers than he did with the 49ers, or so it seems. So all of those things factor in, and that was just a thought I had. I don't have a talk show anymore, so I just wanted to share it. So
That's good, though. I
made a video, and people are like, that's interesting, or what kind of car is that, or
what are you doing? Did you get?
Are you sitting there? Are people walking by you in that parking lot while you record that and going, what is that crazy?
But that's the good thing about it, Mike, that you're actually on social media. You're on Twitter. You finally got Twitter.
Well, I did. Yeah, I did because, well, 2 things happened. I met a guy in a parking lot one day after it was in the Y, and I had just gotten through working out. Met this really nice guy, and he said, you get to do a lot of cool stuff. He said, I wish you shared that on social media. And I just drove away, and I felt like 2 inches tall. I'm like, And so I called Ashley Farrell, who I work with, and I said, what do you think about this? Because I really felt bad. And I said, is there a way that I can do this where I'm not getting on Twitter and being a disruption from the standpoint there are certain things I don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. I don't want to tell you how to live your life. Mm-hmm. I don't want to tell you where to go to church or who to vote for or things. There are plenty of people doing that, and they do it well. I call ball games. I talk about sports. I hope what we do is a little bit of a way to get away from some of the more serious things. So how do I get on there and share thoughts about the Titans or things that are sports related and not be, I don't want to say offensive. I don't want to be controversial. I want to be conversational. And Ashley's helped me a lot with that. And we've come up with some things. The other thing that was true about that too is I have a very strange sense of humor, very strange. And I'm very fearful always that people won't get that. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So I'm not on there to, to dog anybody, even the Jacksonville fans. I just don't, I just don't want to, that's just not how I want to be. And I think we found a pretty nice balance so far. I think we're trying to share some behind the scenes things. There is a little bit of me that still wishes I had a talk show. I had one for 9 years, and so it's like, that would be fun.
You ever thought about bringing that back up, seeing if
No,
no.
It was so I did that and really enjoyed it. But it was so hard because I felt every day like I felt after every ball game that I work. And when the game ends, I'm miserable. I mean, I'm totally spent. All I can think about is every mistake. And it generally takes me until after dinner to sort of decompress. That's how I felt every day at 7 o'clock when I got off the air.
Oh, wow.
And physically and mentally, I couldn't take it. I took it too seriously.
Okay.
And I think we did a pretty decent talk show, but it just wasn't the healthiest thing for me. So doing some spots on talk shows, doing a 1 minute hit on social media, sitting in the parking lot while people are walking by going, is that crazy guy from the Titans who yells a lot? That's probably enough for right now. And I did the official Titans podcast has been a real outlet for that too. Amy Wells wanted us to start that 7 years ago, and I said, absolutely not. This is stupid. And we really enjoy doing that now. I can't imagine not being able to do that. And the response of people to that has been a little staggering. I didn't figure anybody would watch it or listen to it. And the numbers are pretty good. So it's like, that's okay.
People love to, especially insight, right? Like getting a little bit more insight, especially when the off season happens.
Right.
There's not a lot going on. The media, the national media never talks about the Titans. So you know what? People, you would still like to talk about football 24/7, Titans football. It happens. That's why
I do. Yeah.
It's crazy. That's why YouTube is sometimes it's really good. Like the channel is just you talk about football or you give scenarios on players or just interviews and people just eat it up because they still love football. The off season doesn't mean that's it. We just cut off from the Titans. Like, no, we're still trying to talk and stuff like that. So I think and I think what you guys do is an amazing job. And we like it. Like I was talking to Amy Wells when I had her on. I think I had her on maybe a couple of weeks ago. And she was just talking about how, the combine, how much it changed from the first time she had it. And now how people are just more involved. It's just more of a spectacular. Like it's more well known. Like before, the combine, yeah. But now people
that's her deal, that combine. She's crazy when it comes to the combine. She knows everybody, everybody knows her. She's very similar to Coach Mack in terms of how many people, like we walk down the street with Coach Mack when we go out to eat during certain nights at the combine, we have to allow 30 minutes to walk to where we're going because even if it's just a 10-minute walk, Coach Mack is going to get stopped.
Nice.
And it's always people, I mean, you wouldn't believe who stops him, like head coaches. And you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's so-and-so. It's pretty similar with Amy, not necessarily with head coaches, but she did work for the Ravens for a year. She did work for the Colts for a year, and now she's been with us for 11 years. So she spent her whole adult life in the NFL. Amy is a person that if you feel like you know her, you do. She comes across very much like Coach Mack in that way. I think that's one of the reasons they're so close is they understand each other so well. And, it's just to see her get into that. She plans everything we do down to like the snacks she has Rhett Bryant get. I mean, it's really something else. So yeah, we've all kind of got our things, which is nice. And that's I'm kind of the Senior Bowl guy, the mayor of Mobile, according to Amy. I don't really know how I got that, but we dig it. And I hope, wherever you're sitting and listening or watching or whatever, that you feel like you're kind of there with us, that you feel like you're in Mobile, or you feel like you're with us in Indianapolis at the combine, that you feel like you're sitting there with us at the draft, and hopefully you are. The draft parties are fun, and throughout, a lot of it's changed over the years because access is different in different ways. The world's changed. I mean, let's face it. But at the same time, we still try to bring people as inside as much as we can. And through good, bad, and indifferent, those are the things that we always want to do, is to give people that connection. Because when we started this out years ago, back when we were the Tennessee Oilers, Larry Stone and I dreamed of people talking about our team and saying, who should we draft? Are we going to win this week? Do we all like our new coach? Because when you say we, it's your team.
Yeah.
That's where we've gotten. And so how do we take the collective we and make it even bigger? That's the goal.
Definitely. I like it. I like that we. It's true though.
Yeah.
Everyone is proud of the team, right? Everyone, when they're winning, and if we're losing, we're losing. But we're in it together,
Winning is better.
It is.
It is so much better.
It's crazy though to think about, like when we had those seasons where we're 12-5, number one seed, and it's so easy to forget the 3-13 seasons, and then you're like, well, and then when you go on like a losing streak, right? Like maybe 2 games, and people are like flipping out, like, man, I've been here since the beginning. Like I know I've seen some dark days. This is nothing, this is nothing, guys. We got this. But man, those seasons, it's nice. They go by quick though. They go by quick.
You have to appreciate the really good ones, because you will, and how this is all set up, you will have the bad ones.
Yeah.
I mean, just will. At a certain point, Kansas City's going to be a 2-15 team again. That will happen. Now, what they're doing is they're trying to set it up to where that doesn't happen for another 10 to 12 years, which is smart.
Yeah.
But, they had some dark times before they got to the Mahomes era and the Andy Reid era. And, you really, really have to enjoy it. The Patriots had a rather rocky history until Tom Brady became the guy.
Yeah.
There were a lot of unhappy days in Boston Patriots and New England Patriots history until they got to that point, even though they'd been to a couple of Super Bowls.
Yeah.
They didn't play very well in either one, but their history wasn't fantastic. It was littered with a lot of disappointment. We've been there. We've had good seasons. Our first 5 years in Tennessee were great.
Yeah.
We had a couple of playoff seasons after that. We went through a long lull. We had 6 straight winning seasons, which was great. And I really didn't take that for granted, because I don't want to say I took the first 5 years for granted, but I didn't understand that when you fall off the cliff, how far you can fall off the cliff. And we fell to the bottom of the ravine. It took us 9 years to get back. And we did. And so now we've fallen down some, and now we've got to figure out how to get back up. And if it's just a if it's just a 2-year bump, that's not the worst thing in the world with how this thing works.
Yeah, and it really depends on general manager on the draft, right? Because there's been a couple of drafts there. I mean, what I think is 20. What draft class is like? There's no one left in the draft.
20.
20,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that was, but you read about that, and that's really been a case around the whole NFL.
Yeah.
That draft was so strange because after the combine, the world ended.
Yeah.
And nobody got to do pre-draft visits. Nobody got to go on campus and talk about prospects. So that's been the case. If you look around the league with a lot of teams, is that was a draft that was a washout for a lot of ball clubs.
What a weird time in history. Just
Yes.
around everything. It's just one of those where and I remember going to one of the games where it was, like it was only, I forgot what percent. I know it was a Thursday night game against the Colts, and there was like a certain percentage that could actually go in the stadium.
I think we let 12,000, something like that.
It was the weirdest game ever in Nissan Stadium because again, I could have picked my seat, but you had people spread out. It's such a weird time. Actually went with Gerald McGrath in that game. Me and Gerald went to that game, and it's just really, really, it's a strange time. It was a strange time everywhere.
Yeah, it was odd to say the least. Going around when we played to open the season in Denver, and there were no fans.
Yep.
And that was the place they took my temperature outside the stadium. And it said something, it was one of those scanners. They had these scanners set up, and they were really proud of them. We got there 4 hours early, and they took my temperature, and I think it said 106.7. And the long story of it is they had left those scanners out in the heat. It was an exceptionally warm day, and so they were too warm. And said, what? And Coach Matt goes, I was the first one to step up, and Coach Matt goes, Mike Heath's dead. Said, Mike Heath is dead. And it was happening to everybody. So they realized that the scanner's probably wrong. So they ran inside, and they got one of the scanners they do on your forehead, and my temperature was normal. Well, we're playing the Broncos, and of course the Broncos are one of the great teams in terms of fan support. And the public address announcer says, here comes the Broncos, or whatever they say in Denver. And they came running out, and there's nobody in the stands. And so there's one guy on the field clapping. Well, then they show him on the Jumbotron, and you can hear it. You can hear him clapping from the booth where we are. And he realizes he looks ridiculous. So he's like, it's like something out of a movie. He's going, and then he sees himself and he goes, oh. I mean, it was the strangest, weird. And Gostkowski misses 3 field goals. And
I remember that game.
And the whole thing was just bizarre.
We barely won. It wasn't that
against a bad Broncos team.
Right? It was like 16-15, I think.
Something like that. It wasn't great.
Yeah, it was a rough start of the season. But,
yes, it was.
All right. Talking about the draft, and I mean, it's like beating a dead horse. I'm not going to try to be like, oh, who's your pick? Who do you think the Titans are going to get? But people, towards the end of the show, I usually try to get, fans interaction, people that want to ask you questions, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But one of the questions I kept on getting, which I kind of just throw it out here since we're talking about the draft party and stuff, was the draft party. They wanted to know who were the players who are going, and what other stuff. I guess what's the details of the draft party. I'm assuming it's almost similar to a few years ago, correct?
I'm assuming the same thing. So I don't really go to those meetings.
Okay.
So I don't know kind of how all that works, because we're we're in the process of trying to put together a total of 9 hours of radio for that weekend. And you know, I think if you've listened to Titans radio, we just sort of don't just show up and do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of, as my grandmother would say, sticking to my knitting. She would say, sticking to your knitting.
Uh-huh.
I'm minding my own business. So I don't know all the details of that, and I apologize. I just know Titans Radio will be there going hot and heavy. And if you want to come up and get your picture made with Coach Mack, he'll take his picture with everybody. He may put you on the air and have you make the next pick. I mean, there's no telling what he's going to do.
Nice.
So we'll be part of it. The reason I really like doing these is the people that I get to work with from this organization are some of my very favorite people. They do things the right way, and they always have. And I just know it's going to be done in a first-class way. And so from that standpoint, I never stick my nose in it too much because I know they're going to take care of business, and they have for years. So the food will be good. The entertainment will be good. The giveaways will be good. I mean, it'll be a good time. I promise you will have a good time if you come to the Titans draft party. And if you don't, Coach Mack will take care of it for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely I fly out Thursday morning.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll be in Nashville. I'm doing the draft party, and then I fly back Friday morning and back to work Saturday. So there you go.
Nice.
What I gotta do. Gotta do what I gotta do. It's happened. It happened before a couple times in the season. I know the Monday night game against Buffalo we played, and I remember going Monday night and then leaving Tuesday morning and working Wednesday, and it was terrible. But the outcome of the game was really good.
Made it worthwhile.
Definitely. That was probably one of the highlights. One of the games that it was just like it was crazy. After they said that, what's it called? Josh slipped, right? That he didn't run into Jeffrey Simmons. It was that play.
He got fell on.
Yeah. Come on. All right. Talking about some games. There's one of the people we're gonna start asking you some fan questions.
Oh, good.
Because they're actually pretty funny. Some of them are pretty good. So
good.
We got Adam Foxcraft. He's one of the UK guys. Again, from Transatlantic Titans.
Oh, you're talking about Britain.
Yeah.
I think it's like University of Kentucky. I'm sorry. That's okay.
Well,
I thought I was going to get a Will Levis question there.
No, it's not. He says, in decibels, what's the loudest you ever shouted the word sack?
Oh, boy. I don't have any idea. I mean, it's really not a good thing how loud it is. It's really not. It's really very obnoxious.
No, it's not. It's as the Titans
horrendously obnoxious. Well, I have upset opposing coaches who've had a booth next to us.
Oh, really?
I've upset other radio groups who've had a booth next to us. I've upset the fans in Baltimore who literally sit right below us. I mean, like they can reach in our booth.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I couldn't tell you what the loudest one is. It generally has involved Jeffrey Simmons, though.
Definitely.
I would guess that.
Yeah. All right. So
good question.
It is. Here's another one from Nick. Nick wants to know, how different should we expect the offense to look under Callahan?
Very different. I mean, I think that's the part of it. So I don't know if you read The Athletic, but a guy who writes for The Athletic's name is Mike Sando, and he's fantastic.
Okay.
And he has something called the Cook measurement. And so the Cook measurement is how much a team throws on first and second down in the first 28 minutes of the game.
Okay.
And the reason he does that is because in the last 2 minutes of the half, you're obviously in hurry up.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the second half starts, I mean, if you're behind 28-0 or you're ahead 28-0, it can totally skew everything. But for the first 28 minutes of a game, it basically shows your pattern. And from 2019 through 2022, we were last in the NFL in passing on first and second down in the first 28 minutes of games. When you're in control of it, when you have the choice, we passed the least of any team in the league. The Cincinnati Bengals passed the fifth most.
There you go.
They also play a lot of three wides. They run out of three wides. They pass out of three wides. But we're going to throw the ball more. Is it 25% more? No. We're still going to run, but it's going to be a different balance, and it's going to be a different look in personnel, which is why we've made some of the changes we've made. Because when you're going to have a different scheme, like our run scheme is going to look different. It just is.
Yeah.
Our passing scheme is going to look different. So it's not going to be the same, and for some of us who just sort of watch the ball, it may just seem we pass more. But for those of us who can, or for those of you, not me, who study it and can see the inner workings, the intricacies, I think you're going to see a lot of differences.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
Sure. Sure. Well, listen, the other offense worked pretty well for 3 years. Until we had some injuries and some losses and some guys got old and guys retired and, things happened. From 19 through 21, it worked pretty well.
It was nice.
And then about halfway through 22, it stopped working the same way. And so it was time for a change. And that's, I think we were going to change it anyway, but hiring Brian Callahan certainly made that obvious it's going to change.
Definitely. Here's another one. His name is Titan Fan Dan. I like that.
Titan Fan Dan.
Yeah, we actually
do you know Titan Fan Dan?
I do. Actually,
is he tall?
He's kind of my height, so not really that tall.
Okay. Sounds like a big guy.
He is. I think he works out. He actually went with us to London.
Not Lieutenant Dan. Titan Fan Dan. Okay,
Titan Fan Dan says, with Henry, Tannehill, and Byard all gone, who is or who do you expect to be, the next leader of the team and the strongest voice within the locker room?
It's Jeffrey Simmons. It's Big Jeff's team.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's prepared for that. And then if he continues to progress, Will Levis will join him right there at the top. And then you will have other guys who will elevate in that way. But it's Big Jeff. And that's why they kept Big Jeff aware of the different things they've done. He's treated that way. Ownership feels strongly about him. I mean, listen, John Robinson, Mike Vrabel felt strongly about him. Rand Carthon feels strongly about him. Brian Callahan already feels strong. I mean, you just understand who he is. Definitely. He's one of the best. He does it the right way, but it's 98, undoubtedly.
Thank you, Titan Fan Dan.
Thanks, Titan Fan Dan.
Now, this is
not Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Doris wants to know who is someone on the team that is shy in front of cameras but very outgoing in person.
It's funny because when you started that question, the name that jumped to mind was David Stewart, who played right tackle for us for 9 years.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a current player. I mean, it could be
David Stewart, we couldn't get him to do an interview. I mean, he would not give an interview. He just would not. And so I interviewed him. I demanded an interview with David Stewart. He relented. And then we tried to see how many questions I could ask him in less than 2 minutes. And it ended up being something crazy. And then he started to play along a little bit. Mm-hmm. So Big Country didn't have a lot to say, period. But if you were standing there with him and you were talking to him, you could really have a conversation. In terms of what he would do media wise, it was nothing. I mean, literally nothing. It was yes, no.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if it was nerves or if he took that offensive line thing seriously, that they're supposed to remain seen and not heard. I have no idea what it was.
Wow.
The two interviews that I got to do with him, you would have said, had you listened to it, this is a disaster. I considered them both masterpieces because I actually I got him to laugh a couple times. I was able to, but I love that guy. I mean, you'd see him in the hall, you'd see him in the cafeteria. He was just as nice as he could be. And it also gives me a chance to mention Big Country David Stewart. So that's a good thing. He's one of my most underrated favorite Titans. And he was a really good player that was underrated. When we had Ruse and Stewart, we were pretty doggone good at the tackle position.
Yeah. All right. This comes from Slick Rick 626.
Oh, I like that. That's good. I didn't come up with anything that good.
Yeah, Slick Rick. You might have to change your Twitter handle.
Slick Rick. Let's do it.
What moment in Titans history made you shake your head in disbelief? Now, there was a lot of people. There was a couple questions that had to do with like AJ Brown, and again, like a moment, and they kind of like said not including the AJ Brown. So let's not include the AJ Brown moment. Anything.
I mean, I'll give you a good one and a bad.
Okay.
The bad one was losing to Baltimore in the AFC divisional round in 2000, because that team had been so good all year coming off the Super Bowl. We just all assumed we're going back.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say, well, we're definitely going to win. It was just like you have these feelings and you're just like, this team's going to take care of business. They're going to get it done. You have such a belief in the ball club. It's not a cockiness. Yeah. And then when they lost that game, it was like, how did this happen? And that was a year almost exactly to the day after the Music City Miracle happened. So you're here to here in the space of a year. And that was crushing. That was more crushing than even the 2008 loss to Baltimore or the 2021 loss to Cincinnati, because by the time we got to those two games, we had enough experience having a team here and following a team that closely that we knew it could happen.
Yeah, that never happened. Yeah,
I think people left the stadium that day after the 2000 season in the playoffs in disbelief. The other one was beating New England in the playoffs in 2019.
Wow,
it was so great.
That was
because we knew that we had ended their reign of terror. It was over.
Yeah,
it was our long National Football League nightmare was over.
That was a special run. That was a special run.
Well, and the next week was great too. But I mean, this is a team that was one for the ages. They were a team that 10 years earlier had beaten us 59-0.
I remember that game too.
And we went up there and we ended it. I mean, you knew Brady wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
It was over. And the Titans did it. And there was just a part of me that is so in disbelief. I've actually listened back to that on the radio. And I don't usually do that because I just wondered, did I sound as out of body and as goofy as I felt? And I did. It was terrible. It was absolutely, I didn't think it was very good at all. But the reality was I was stunned that we actually did it. I knew we could beat them because they weren't playing that well and we were playing well. And
we had their numbers for.
And they had their number. And yeah, we'd beaten them the year before in the regular season pretty badly. But I but it was like it's like this really happened. We beat Brady and Belichick and it's over.
At home.
Over. And all their fans had to go out and they all knew it was over. And now they're picking third this year. And I mean, they've come back to, like we were talking earlier, they've come back to the real world of the NFL after having such a glorious run. And we did it. And you can do whatever you want to me for the rest of my life, but I'll always have that up here. And
100%.
that'll never go away. Very special.
It's great. It's great. I could still watch the highlights of that game. Man. All right, Chad Davis.
Chad.
Yeah, Chad. Good guy. Good guy. I know.
How do you know Chad?
I know Chad. I have a Mr.Titan event in Hendersonville, and I do it every year. And it's right before the home opener, so like the Saturday, play Sunday, and it's a big gathering at the Rudder, the restaurant I rent out.
That is,
and, yep. And a bunch of Titan fans try to get as many Titan fans to come. We do raffles. We usually do some charity giveaway.
How about that?
And Chad always comes. Chad's been there since day one, so Chad's a really
very cool.
Yeah. So Chad wants to know who your favorite player in Oilers/Titans history.
Steve McNair.
Without a doubt.
I mean, there's nobody that embodies what I think we are and what I hope we are every year. I saw what he went through inside our building. I've seen him limp out of training rooms. I've watched him try to get on the bus. He stood next to me in the back of a plane all the way to Oakland in 2001 and talked to me. And I thought, Steve McNair really thinks I'm a great guy. The truth was, Steve's back hurt so badly he couldn't sit down. So he had to stand the whole flight to Oakland. Oh, and wow. Then he went out and led us to a win in a game that didn't mean anything on Saturday Night Football. And it was just awesome. And I mean, there's so many moments like that. And, because he was the quarterback when I got here, because of just who he was overall. And, you hear the reverence when anybody with our organization in any way during that time, like talks about Steve, you hear a different reverence. Mm-hmm. And that's why he went through a lot. Yeah. He went through a whole lot while he was the quarterback. He led us to some great moments. He was always interesting to be around because he could be incredibly grumpy. Mm-hmm. Maybe because he was hurting all the time. Some of that was just Steve, and you had to endure that. Like anytime I went to ask him to do anything, he would just give me the business. You're going to go out. Like I asked him for a signed ball at one point for a young fan. And he said, "You're making that story up." It was a really sad story, by the way. And he said, "You're making that story up because you're going to go sell that ball on eBay." I'm like, "Steve, I'm not going to sell the ball on eBay." I said, "It's going to this boy who's about to have surgery," because that's totally made up. And that's the way he was. I mean, he was just he's one of those people in your life that you never meet anybody else like. Bad, good, and indifferent. You never meet anybody like him. And to watch him play, I'll never see anybody like Steve McNair. Now, Kevin Dyson's at the top of the list. Mm-hmm. Kevin Byard's at the top of the list. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Simmons is at the top of the list. I mean, there's some who are right there. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of guys that, like I mentioned, David Stewart, Michael Ruse. There are a bunch of guys that Brad Castle was incredibly good to me. And, I've been incredibly fortunate to deal with a lot of special people, but I don't think anybody around me will have their feelings hurt by me saying McNair. I don't think so.
I don't think so at all. So here comes another person. This is actually it's a funny Twitter handle. His name is Two Tone Punch. Now he's Two Tone Punch. He's a Hawaiian. It's the Hawaiian,
I like it.
Oh yeah, but he's blue. It's funny.
How about a nice Hawaiian punch? Sure.
There you go. Yeah. He says, out of all the great running backs, who's your favorite?
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry. Okay, that was easy. Nice.
I mean, it's tough. I would say CJ because I love to watch him run, but Derek played on better teams and had more significant moments. Eddie was not as big a factor. He was, you know, he had some injuries and some things went wrong. I loved Eddie, still love Eddie. But he was at a different point in his career. I didn't have the early Houston years. I had 8 years of Derek, and Derek was on good teams. I mean, even the last 2 teams, though not as good, were certainly very competitive.
Yeah.
CJ played on some bad teams, unfortunately.
All right, we have Haley. Haley wants to know. We know he is the best of calling exciting games, but what is his approach to calling less than exciting games, especially during the dark times, 2-14, 3-13 years?
Well, there are 2 parts. First of all, I love my job. And so, like last year, we walked into that Jacksonville game in week 18, and the season's over, and we know a bunch of people aren't going to be back, and that hurts.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going to happen with the coach and the coaching staff, but we know something's going to happen one way or the other. There are going to be people who lose their jobs, and you never like to see that, so it's unpleasant. And yet we're walking in to call an NFL game. I mean, Alex, when I was growing up, when I moved to Franklin, there were 13,000 people that lived there. I was surrounded by cows, cow pasture. There was nothing there. And now, all these years later, I get to call an NFL game. How am I not excited about that?
Yeah.
I'm excited to call an NFL game every week. So there's that part of it from a fan standpoint that you still get motivated because you get to do what you love to do. I love broadcasting. So there's that. The second part of it is I was taught by some really good broadcasters, one in particular, and I was taught a lot of fundamentals. And again, this is too inside baseball, but the question was asked. And so I know what the job is. I understand that if you're listening when we're 2-13, then you love this and you're committed to it, and I better be committed to doing it for you, because what I'm doing it for is I'm not doing it for the Titans or the Titans players or for the NFL or, you know, for the radio station or the radio stations, whatever. They're part of it, and I want to do a good job for them. But I'm working for you. I work for you.
Gotcha.
We all work for you. And if you're giving your time to listen, then I'm going to give you my best no matter what the score is. And everybody on our crew is going to be like that. And that's training. Again, getting too deep. I know people don't want to hear this, but that's where it comes from.
Okay. All right. That was a good question. We have Kelly Bean. Kelly Bean, she wants to know what move on a player has the team made that surprised him the most in retrospect, outside of the AJ Brown.
I think trading Steve McNair in 2006, because we knew it was coming. That was a really weird thing. We knew it was coming. We knew something was going to happen. But when it actually did happen, Alex, Frank Wycheck and I were in a golf on a golf course just outside of Chattanooga. We were our Chattanooga radio station, WGOW, is just fantastic, and they had us down for an event with some of their clients. And so I think we were on like 15 when we found out, and neither Frank nor I spoke through the last 4 or 5 holes, whatever it was that we played, because we just couldn't believe Steve McNair wasn't part of our team anymore. Just couldn't fathom how life went on without 9 as part of it. And if you're not old enough to remember that, it may not make sense to you, but he was just so ingrained in people. And the thought of him not playing for us was just unfathomable.
I feel like it's
So
like
that's what.
like the younger generation now with Derrick Henry growing
Right.
up.
It's exactly the same thing. That's a great comparison. It's like I'm not nearly as surprised about Derrick Henry because I've seen it now.
Yeah, yeah.
But I knew how they felt
When it
the,
happened.
the day after it happened. I knew exactly how they felt for that very reason. I felt so much sympathy and empathy for our fan base, especially the younger fans, because this is their dude.
Yeah.
Just like Steve was our superhero, Derek was their superhero, and ours too. But it is you. I guess you get a little hardened as you get old. But I think when you've seen things a little bit, you have a different context. You have a different view of it.
Yeah, definitely. Titans fanatic wants to know what were some of his favorite plays that he has called besides the Music City Miracle. Is a certain play
Steve,
that
I've probably got 4 or 5. Steve McNair to Drew Bennett, 4th and 10, 2003 at Houston to win that game. Vince Young to Kenny Britt, 2009 last play of the game to beat Arizona. Rob Baronis 60-yard field goal to beat Indianapolis 2006, where I nearly had said holy something on the radio. I think Ryan Suckup field goal to beat
oh,
Kansas City at the end of the 2016 regular season on an incredibly cold day. Gosh, there's Derrick Henry's 99-yard run where I made the stupid point that it was the longest run in franchise history. Well, of course it was. Idiot. It was the longest run in NFL history. They can't get any longer. Every time I hear that, I think you are a goof.
no,
What are you
it's
doing?
all right. It's all right.
But it was, it was so memorable to watch it, because you're watching this like in slow motion, and he stiff arms a guy, and you're thinking, okay, now he's going to go out of bounds.
Yeah, it
And he
looks like
stiff arms another guy, and you're thinking, well, now he's going to go out of bounds, and he just keeps rolling. And for what it meant to Derek's career, if you believe the rumors, he was pretty close to being traded 3 weeks before or 4 weeks before, whatever it was. And that night, he became Derrick Henry, who's going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer. The play you're talking about in the Buffalo Monday night game, Jeffrey Simmons taking out Josh Allen, Derrick Henry's stiff arm of Josh Norman against Buffalo.
yeah,
I mean, I can listen. I can go on and on to Billy Volick's fake punt against the Carolina Panthers in 2003, and he throws a touchdown pass.
I had Billy on too, and he talked.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Billy's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun over the. He was out on some caravans with us when we were really bad, and he was supposed to be replacing Steve McNair. And it's like, man,
that's a hard.
Yeah, it was the thing. But he was a good sport and a good player and a good guy.
Yeah, Billy's cool. We have one last question for you. Okay,
Good.
this is coming from Two Tone Nation again. Group of
Is
guys.
that like a whole person?
It's an account with 5 or 6 guys that do the tailgates right out of Nissan, right
That's
under
great.
the pedestrian bridge. So shout out to Two Tone Nation. This is, what experience do you have in sports broadcasting before the Titans? I think we've talked a little about this when I first interviewed you, and you talked about, I think it was baseball and stuff, right? Baseball.
I was in Knoxville for 12 years. The first part of that, I was in school. I started working right as I got to campus. And then even after I graduated, I stayed for several years after that. I did a talk show. Started doing a talk show when I was 21 and did University of Tennessee baseball. Worked on the Vol radio network with the late great John Ward. Did football, basketball, baseball. Did Lady Vols. Did some play-by-play for the Lady Vols. Did some TV for the Vol network and for WBIR. Worked for WIVK radio, which was the #1 country station in America when I was there. And so it was a big honor for
Mhm.
just this young punk to get to be on WIVK. And it's still something that I take a lot of pride in because those people were so good to me. So I had a really nice background of work starting when I was 19. And that was a huge help. It's been a huge help throughout. I mean, I had this sort of foundation to build on from all of these people who took the time to teach me, to scold me, sometimes to berate me deservedly, and to, there was there were no HR departments then, so it was a little bit of an initiation, but I needed that
Mhm.
very badly, and they broke me down and built me back up, and I was very lucky. And I try to spend as much time as I can with young broadcasters now to say, hey, don't make the mistakes I made, because there's an easier way to do it. Uh, I've been really fortunate that it's worked out the way that it has,
Mhm.
but I had no idea that it would go the way that it did. It's beyond my wildest dreams. Very fortunate.
Well, we are honored, and we love having Mike Keith, man. We love hearing you on the broadcast. The passion that you show in the games is what we love about. You might think that people around you think it's obnoxious when you scream sack, but man, even like my intro,
Well, it is.
I have your sack, and it's the Jeffrey Simmons when he
Wait a minute. Do you pay for that?
yeah, don't worry about that.
I'm
Right, I had someone.
Brian will be on you. You know that, don't you? Nah, I mean, I listen. I, it's like the miracle play. People use the miracle play, all different sorts. Good,
Yeah,
super,
yeah.
have fun. I mean, that's what this is all about, man. This is a ride that will go on as long as it goes on, but we're going to do our very best. Everybody involved, I can assure you that we're going to stay connected with people. We're not going to ever get in an ivory tower. That's not going to happen. And the other thing too is we're going to take the job seriously, but have a good time at the same time,
Definitely.
because you can do that. The people I worked for when I worked for John Ward with the Vol Network, it was all coats and ties, and and I told our group when I came here, I said, that's not me.
Yeah.
I said, now I can wear a coat and tie. I've got a tuxedo. I'm pulling it out this weekend for an event. I mean, you do that, but
Mhm.
my everyday is a good golf shirt or wind shirt or pullover or whatever. I want people to feel comfortable working with us. And when people come in new, Ramon Foster learned that very quickly. He goes, you guys are loose. And we are,
Yeah.
because we want the audience to feel like we're the people sitting there with them at the tailgate or in the stands or whatever. We want there to be knowledge and professionalism, but we want there to be relatability. It's why we turned Coach Mack loose like we do. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. I mean, we hired Coach Mack, and after the preseason, I told our guys, I said, hey, our broadcast is changing. Because I didn't say it that way, but what I meant is I said, people are going to love what he does. He's going to mean something to people immediately. He is a natural connection, whether you're a hardcore fan, whether you're middle of the road, or whether you're just somebody listening because somebody else has it on in the car. Coach Mack's special. And so we're going to make him the star of what we do because he so represents what we hope to be, and that is insightful, prepared, professional, but also fun. And that's what he is.
Well,
That's the goal. I mean, there's just too many things in life are too serious that this is not going to be. I mean,
yeah,
you're not going to feel like you're going before a congressional subcommittee when you listen to us.
definitely.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
but you, but you've done an amazing job, and like I
well,
said,
thank you. Thank
people
you.
love you, and we appreciate everything that you
And
do.
I appreciate them.
Yep.
And I hope they know how much I appreciate what they do and what they say. It's not taken for granted, I promise.
Well, thank you so much, and I do appreciate you taking your time talking a little bit football. I'll see you this Thursday at the draft. We'll definitely
Thank you, Mr. Titan.
Well, then, thank you, Mr.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.